Hello, dear and beloved science students. It's your favorite science teacher, Mr. Heckenlively, coming to you on Wednesday, April 29th. Okay, so hopefully for tomorrow, we can do a Google Meet. Now remember, these are not mandatory. I think it's just a good opportunity for you to ask me questions, visit with some of your friends, and I know it's kind of early in the morning, but that's kind of what works in my life. Okay, so we're going to go over Birds of Hubbard Brook number 2. So remember, what you're doing is you're looking at what happens to bird populations in an area that had been very heavily logged. Okay, so the setup of this is that the Hubbard Brook area was heavily logged in the 1900s. So what that meant was by the time the scientists started there really wasn't, it was a very open area. Some shrubs and trees were starting to grow, but it really wasn't a mature forest. It was a younger forest. And so the question is, what happens to bird populations in younger forests versus, versus older forests, okay? So that was the information on the first page that you read through, kind of basically giving you more information about that. Then what you did was on the second page, you had information about the various bird species. Now the birds that you should be looking at very closely, I think, are the least flycatcher and the American redstart, okay? Because these are birds that generally prefer younger forests, open areas. So the question becomes, what happens over time as the environment changes? As trees grow up, it goes from kind of an open grassland area into a more mature forest, okay? So then you get to the third page, and they've got this really nice picture here, okay? So you can see how at the beginning it's very open, but over time a forest grows up. So here's what you should be really thinking as you're going through this. You should be thinking to yourself, okay, so I understand that certain bird species like certain environments, but the environment will change over time. So what will happen to the number of, to those bird species over time in that area? Will it stay the same? Will it increase? Will it decrease? Then you go to your favorite. I know you guys all love data tables. Okay, so what you're looking for is, what patterns can I see in the data? Okay, so the pattern that you tend to see very quickly is that the least flycatcher disappears very quickly from the environment. From 1969, there are 26 flycatchers that they see in that environment. By 1980, it's down to 15. 1982, they pretty much completely vanish, and only in 1991 and 1992 do they see any of those birds. Now, that doesn't mean the bird is going extinct. That simply means the environment has changed and it's no longer good for that bird. The American redstart is kind of an interesting one because it prefers intermediate environments. So it takes a much longer period of time till it starts vanishing. So the least flycatcher pretty much disappears by 1981, okay, from 1969 to 1981. The American redstart starts really disappearing around 2010, okay, so that's when the environment really doesn't support it very much, okay? So then what it asks you to do is it's got this. So what we'd like to see is that you're able to connect the dots and connect the right dots, okay? So a little bit of work with graphing, just so you can see trends in the data. I think that's kind of important. then try to put together a good kind of a CER, make your claim, support it with evidence, so I think a good evidence statement might be something like, the least flycatcher needs environments which are more open, and so when the trees start to grow, that is the first species to disappear because it's not a good environment for it. Okay, so let's see if I've covered everything. Yeah, so really, the important facts. What I'm always asking you to do is to sort of come up with a narrative in your head. Like if you're telling yourself a story, say, what is the story that I'm telling myself? What are the important facts of that story? Okay, so we know the environment was heavily logged, so it's likely to be very open at the beginning of this. So we have a forest that's starting to grow up. And then we ask ourselves, as the forest matures, which species are likely to vanish? And we see that the data supports that the least flycatcher is the one that disappears first, followed by the American redstart. So what we know is the least flycatcher really likes those big open environments. The American redstart can live in very immature forests, maybe forests which are somewhat developed, but when it gets to a mature forest, the American redstart disappears as well. Okay, so your next assignment that will be in Google Classrooms is Be My Urchin. And so I'm going to put that in, and hopefully you'll get started on that, and I will be able to go through Google Classroom and see who has turned the assignment in, and hopefully you are learning new things during this lockdown and being good to each other and good to your families. And I will talk to you all later. Hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully I'll see a lot of you. Hopefully you'll get up. All right.